You found Psychotic Confessions. This is a place for the stories people don't tell in daylight, the ones that stay with you, the ones that don't have clean endings. Settle in, turn the lights down. And whatever you do, don't listen to this alone. The first time I heard the whispers, I was alone on the night shift at St. Mercy's Hospital. The halls were empty, and the only sound should have been the hum of the fluorescent lights. But there it was, a soft, hushed murmur, like someone sharing secrets just out of earshot. It wasn't the usual creaks or groans of an old building settling in for the night. I'd taken this job because I needed the money, and my roommate had moved in with her boyfriend, leaving me alone in our small apartment. The rent was too high to keep it to myself. I couldn't afford much more than a few hours of sleep before heading back to work. The whispers, faint as they were, cut through the silence like a knife. Something wasn't right about those whispers. They weren't just random noises. They seemed directed, almost intentional. It was as if someone, or something, was trying to communicate from just beyond my perception. And I swear to you, there were times when it felt like they were getting louder, more insistent, like they wanted me to hear them. I've never said this out loud before, not even to myself in the quiet of that apartment after a shift. The whispers followed me home sometimes, echoing in my mind long after I'd left the hospital behind. Every time I think about it now, about those moments when the silence wasn't really silent at all, I wonder if anyone else ever heard them too. If they ever felt the same chill down their spine that I did. My routine was simple. I worked at a convenience store down the street, pulling night shifts from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. The store was a small, cluttered place with faded posters and fluorescent lights humming overhead. The owner, Mr. Lee, had been running it for decades. His hands were always stained with ink from the newspapers he read when things slowed down. I didn't have anywhere else to go. My girlfriend of 5 years had left me abruptly a month before I moved in. She'd packed her bags and walked out without so much as an explanation. The only thing she said was that she couldn't do it anymore. That night, I sat on the hardwood floor, staring at the empty apartment, feeling numb. I was still living with that same emptiness when I found this place. It was cheap, a bare-bones studio with a kitchenette and a shower stall. The window in my bedroom wouldn't close all the way, letting in a constant draft that kept me awake at night. My neighbor across the hall was an older woman named Mrs. Thompson. She had a gentle smile and always greeted me warmly when I saw her in the hallway. She would ask if I needed anything from the store, since she went shopping every Sunday morning, but she never stayed long to chat. Her cat, Muffin, would often sit at my doorstep purring until I let him in for a few minutes of scratches behind his ears. On Sundays, I called my mother. She lived across the country, and we didn't talk much. It had been like that since my sister died years ago. When she picked up the phone, her voice was always soothing, a reminder of a simpler time when our family still felt whole. I'd tell her about nothing really, work, what I ate for dinner, but she listened with an understanding silence. Those first weeks felt off in small ways. The building seemed older than it should have been, its creaks and groans echoing through the hallways at night. The neighbors never spoke to each other. You could hear their televisions through the thin walls, but never any voices or laughter. It wasn't the sort of place where people socialized. I started researching old newspapers online, looking for any mention of the building or its past tenants, anything that might explain the strange occurrences. The city archives were sparse. Only a few mentions of a fire decades ago, but nothing about fatalities or evacuations. It was as if the building had been forgotten by time itself. I stumbled upon an old photograph of the neighborhood from the 1950s, a ghostly reminder of a past that didn't quite align with my present reality. But what truly unnerved me was the sensation of being watched. When you work night shifts, you learn to listen to the whispers of the world around you. The hum of the city at rest is like a heartbeat, steady and comforting. The pacing, the missing items. It was as if my apartment was becoming a labyrinth in which I was both explorer and prisoner. The psychological mechanism was undeniable. Fear had begun to colonize my mind, turning every creak into a harbinger of dread. Every night shift felt like wandering deeper into a psychological maze, where I could never quite escape from the shadows that followed me home. One night, after a particularly harrowing shift, I returned to find my apartment door slightly ajar. The pacing above me had stopped, but I felt something else. Another presence lingering inside the unit that seemed to whisper and wait for my return, as if it had been summoned by my own fears. I stepped inside, my heart pounding, the door creaking shut behind me like a mouth closing. The silence was thick, heavier than it had been before, as if the air itself was waiting for something to happen. I scanned the room, eyes darting from corner to corner, and that's when I noticed it. The book I'd left on my coffee table had moved. I picked up the book, running my fingers over the pages. The paper felt cool, almost damp, as if it had been exposed to something more than just air. I told myself it was nothing, a draft from an open window, perhaps, or even a cat that had wandered in and knocked things around. But as I closed the book and placed it back on the table, there was no rationalizing away the chill that ran down my spine. A few nights later, it happened again. This time, it was a sound, a soft tapping like fingers drumming against wood coming from the hallway outside my apartment door. The pacing had moved from above to directly outside, as if following me home and waiting for me on the landing. The third incident was more intimate than any of the others had been. It came while I slept. I woke up to the smell of something sweet and cloying, like rotted flowers in a vase left to decay for too long. I fumbled for my phone, switching on the light to dispel some of the darkness that had gathered around me. The room looked untouched, everything where I'd left it, but the scent was still there, clinging to the edges of things like a veil. I got up and checked every corner of the apartment, searching for an explanation. I finally settled on opening windows to clear the air, telling myself it was just the remnants of some old perfume or a forgotten spray that had been lingering in storage. But as I climbed back into bed, I could feel a cold spot where the warmth should have been, like someone had left their imprint on the sheets. It wasn't long before checking my locks became part of my nightly routine, an extra step added to the ritual of securing my apartment against the world outside. The television stayed on until I fell asleep each night, its soft glow and gentle hum providing a semblance of comfort. I kept it all to myself, knowing that trying to explain this would make me sound unhinged. When I finally confided in my partner about the strange things happening, they suggested it was probably just stress from work, something I'd agreed with half-heartedly before returning to the silence and solitude of our apartment. The next morning, after a restless night spent listening for any more sounds or smells, I felt a sense of urgency. The apartment felt too small, too confined. For a moment, I thought about packing up my things and leaving. That night shift life wasn't worth it if it meant losing sleep. But the lease was still in effect, the money was tight, and where would I go? How would I explain this without sounding crazy? The pattern had been building slowly, but it was getting harder to ignore each time. The whispers of unease grew louder, and I began to wonder how much longer I could pretend nothing was wrong. The whispers turned into a deafening roar when I started hearing things during my shifts at work too. At night, the sound of keys jingling would echo through the empty hallways, as if someone was trying to unlock a door that didn't exist. The humdrum of the fluorescent lights overhead began to sound like a malevolent lullaby whispering secrets meant only for me. The psychological mechanism at play here is what Freud referred to as the uncanny or unheimlich, where something both familiar and unfamiliar creates a sense of dread. The door was open. I hadn't opened it. The lock had been deadbolted when I left. There was no way anyone could have gotten in. I stepped inside, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. The silence was deafening, but not silent enough. There was a faint, almost imperceptible sound, like the rustling of paper or soft footsteps in the distance. I strained to hear more, but it stopped abruptly as soon as I focused on it. The room started to spin as my mind reeled with the implications. I tried calling someone for help, but couldn't bring myself to speak a complete sentence over the phone. Jamie arrived within 15 minutes. She took one look at me and knew something was wrong. I slept in my car one night, parked outside Jamie's house, just to feel some semblance of safety. She found me there the next morning, curled up in the driver's seat with the windows down, and looked at me with a mix of pity and worry. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. It wasn't just that something was happening in my apartment anymore. It was that something had happened to me. The next time it happened, the sense of proximity became too real to ignore. The faint scent lingered, but now there was a texture, like soft fur brushing against my skin. I woke up with the sound of something heavy breathing right by my ear. I could hear the air escaping through its nostrils in quiet, rhythmic bursts. It wasn't just that someone had been in my apartment. Now it was that something was in here with me. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I couldn't rely on others to believe me, and I certainly couldn't trust myself to stay safe in that apartment alone any longer. I started recording everything with a small camcorder, an old relic from my college days that I found gathering dust in my closet. Every night, I'd set up the camera and hit record, hoping to capture something, anything, that would vindicate my growing fear. The more I tried to grasp it, the more slippery it became, much like trying to hold onto smoke. I picked up the knife from the kitchen counter, the same one I'd used for cutting vegetables just moments ago. The silence stretched thin, almost snapping from tension. Then I heard it, a soft, rhythmic tapping. I moved slowly, deliberately, towards the door. The tapping grew louder with each step, a relentless beat that matched the rhythm of my racing pulse. When I reached the doorway, it stopped abruptly, a held silence. I stepped inside the room. The air was colder here, and there was an odd smell, like old books mixed with something metallic. I saw it then, a shape hunched over by the window, its back to me. I don't remember this part well. It's like my brain shut down for self-preservation. The knife fell from my hand with a clatter. My voice rose in a scream, and then it was over. In the aftermath of that night, every movement felt deliberate, every breath measured. I called my friend Emily from the bathtub, phone trembling in my hand. But there was nothing she could do, nothing anyone could do, except listen and watch me crumble from what I saw. The knife lay on the floor, untouched. I hadn't used it. My clothes weren't torn. My skin wasn't bruised. When Emily arrived, she found me sitting on the couch in a daze. It felt strange, this physical contact, too hot, too loud. My apartment was no longer safe. Never again could I step foot there. The next morning, I packed a bag with the bare essentials: clothes, toiletries, my laptop, the things that mattered most. I took one last look at the room where everything had happened and left without glancing back. I moved into a small motel downtown for a few days, just until I could figure out what to do next. The walls were thin and the lights flickered, but it was better than staying in that apartment. The first few days blurred into one another, a series of sleepless nights punctuated by brief moments of exhaustion. I didn't know what else to do, so I started searching through my apartment's records. I found something in the bathroom drawer, a small bottle of pills left over from when I had a cold months ago. Someone had tampered with them. The seals were broken and the contents spilt onto the floor. The next morning, I packed a bag with the bare essentials: clothes, toiletries, my laptop, the things that mattered most. I moved into a small motel downtown for a few days, just until I could figure out what to do next. The walls were thin and the lights flickered, but it was better than staying in that apartment. The first few days blurred into one another, a series of sleepless nights punctuated by brief moments of exhaustion. I didn't know what else to do, so I started searching through my apartment's records. There are people out there who have had similar experiences, and if you're one of them, then I believe you. Sometimes it feels impossible to share these stories without feeling judged or misunderstood. But at some point, you just have to say it out loud, not for closure, not for views, just because it needs to be heard. And every now and then, when the house is quiet enough, I wonder if telling it was the right thing. Because on the nights I don't sleep, it feels like something is listening, and that's what keeps me awake. The idea is unsettling, but it resonates with me deeply. What if there's another version of me out there, one that isn't haunted by these memories? The thought is both comforting and terrifying. Would I trade places with that version of myself if given the chance? Or would I cling to this reality, flawed as it is, because it's all I know? There's an emptiness inside me now, a void that was created by something that defies explanation. It's like living with a phantom limb. You know it's gone, but you still feel its ghostly presence. This void has seeped into every aspect of my life, affecting how I interact with others and how I perceive the world around me. Sometimes I wonder if this emptiness is the price I paid for that night, if there's some kind of cosmic balance at play. The silence in the morning isn't comforting anymore. It feels hollow. It used to be a peaceful transition from night to day, but now it's like waking up in an empty house after everyone has left. You know they've been gone for a while because everything is still and quiet, too quiet. The shadows have shifted slightly since that night, like the ground beneath me is different now. Every creak and groan of the old building feels amplified. It's as if the walls themselves are trying to speak to me in a language I can't quite understand. When I look back at the past version of myself, the one who didn't know what it felt like to carry something so heavy, I wonder how they ever slept soundly. The past and present versions feel disconnected, almost like separate entities living inside the same body. It's like trying to hold onto a dream after you wake up. You grasp at the fragments, but they slip away until all that's left is a faint impression of something you can't quite remember. In those moments of clarity, when everything feels clear and tangible, I think about how much of our lives are defined by the things we don't understand, the shadows lurking in the corners of our minds, waiting to be acknowledged. That's all for tonight. If this story stayed with you, good. That means it worked. If you have your own confession, something you've never said out loud, something that still doesn't make sense, you know where to find us. Drop it below. And if you're not already here, subscribe. There are more stories where this one came from. Psychotic Confessions will be in the dark.